lesson. Today we're going to talk about perspective. There are 4 different kinds of perspective. You don't need to know how to do all of them. I just want to show you what they are so you understand the differences. If you were going to go into interior design or architecture or probably even engineering or definitely illustration, you need to understand and you need to be able to draw in these different kinds of perspectives. But for most people, it's just cool to know what they are. Okay, the 3 types of perspective are 1-point perspective, 2-point perspective, and 3-point perspective. And then the 4th type is something called isometric, which I'll show you in a minute. The point in the perspective refers to a dot on the line called a vanishing point. And this is the place where all of the lines would converge way in the distance. Artists use perspective to create depth in a picture or to make something look 3D. So this is a diagram of the beginning of a drawing that is 1-point perspective. The vanishing point is that point where all the lines converge, and that horizontal line in the middle of the picture is called the horizon line. This illustration is an example of 1-point perspective. That 1 point would be down there behind that arch. The completed illustration, the viewer obviously can't see the point, the vanishing point, and those guidelines, but you just see the finished illustration. A drawing with 2-point perspective has 2 vanishing points. So usually, if you can see 2 complete sides of a building or 1 and most of the other complete side of a building, that's usually done with 2-point perspective. This castle drawing is an example of 2-point perspective. 3-point perspective is when you can see both sides of something and you see it from the top or the bottom. So this is an example of 3-point perspective from a bird's eye view. If you could see the bottom of it, it would be what we call from a worm's eye view. You may recognize this illustrator. It's Matthias Aldefsson, the guy I told you about before. He likes to use a lot of isometric perspective, which is where you don't use a vanishing point. So you try to draw with size relationships and everything correct, but you don't have one single vanishing point. So this is called isometric perspective. Isometric perspective drawings work great if you have a scene that's got a lot going on, like this one, like a city scene. If you were an architect or an engineer and you needed an exact, very precise illustration, like detailed illustration of something, you probably wouldn't use an isometric drawing because you probably need to use like CAD or computer-aided design system to get all the angles and the measurements exactly perfect. Supplies you're going to need today are a piece of copy paper, like 8.5 by 11 or 9 by 12, whatever you have, white copy paper. You need a pencil, you need some scissors, you need just 2 little tiny pieces of any kind of tape, Scotch tape or masking tape, and you need also some crayons or markers, something to color and draw your buildings in with. My art teacher friend, Cassie Stevens, has this really cool project she does called Perspective Pop-Out. So that's what we're going to be doing today. It's a 1-day lesson. So let's watch her video of how to complete this project.
Take a horizontal piece of paper, starting at the left side, bring it over to the right side and fold, unfold, and then bring the top down to the bottom, folding the paper. Once you've done that, unfold, and then once again, bring the left over to the right. Take 3 fingers, glue them together figuratively, and then put them on the fold, both folds, and put a polka dot where your fingers were. Draw a line that goes from the dot to the upper right-hand corner of the paper. Cut, open, and there you go. You've got like a weird M shape. You're going to take a marker, draw a horizontal line. That's your horizon line. Then you'll draw a series of vertical lines in varying widths. Those will be your buildings. Then you can take your time and decorate the windows of your building, making each one of your buildings different and unique, just like us. Go ahead, draw rectangle windows, half circle windows, whatever you like to do. While I'm going to go ahead and go in zoom fast zippity mode and finish off my buildings. Once you've gotten all of your buildings done, then you can color them in. I'm using colored pencils. You could use markers, crayons, whatever you have on hand. You could even just shade with a pencil for a kind of black and white look. Now you're going to take the top of your paper, fold it back down, Flip it over and then repeat the same process on the back, basically just folding the paper back and forth. Turn it over, and here's where things get a little tricky. You're going to put your index finger, your pointer finger, right there in the middle, and then bring the buildings down just a little bit, creating a fold. You see it? A fold behind the buildings. There we go. Give that paper a massage so it stays put. Then you have this angle line of a fold. Repeat the same steps on the other side. It's a little tricky. You can do this. This is what's going to make your buildings pop up and stand out. To really get them to stay in place, later we'll add tape. But for now, go ahead and unfold and go ahead and use a marker to follow those crease lines. That will be your road. To really show that your road is going back into space, draw the dashes in the middle of the road so they get gradually bigger as they come closer. When I colored my road in, I really wanted it to look like it was going back into space. So that point in the back is where my lines are radiating or coming from. You could color yours any way you like, but for me, this really allowed me to show the space and the depth that I was trying to create in this 1 point perspective. It's called 1 point because that little point where I was having my lines radiate from, that's the point where all the lines of my buildings are coming from. That's my 1 point. Now that I'm done coloring, I'm going to go ahead, bend it back up, and now's the time to tape into place. I'm thinking that a little video on how to make a car, especially a superhero car, since it is superhero week, if you're hanging with me, might be pretty fun. So there you have it, an easy and simple-ish, except for that stinky fold, 1 point perspective. Have fun.
All right, so now that you are a perspective superstar, go ahead and make your perspective pop up. Feel free to watch the video again if you can't remember how to do all those folds. It was 3 folds in the beginning, and then the fold forward and backward, or it's called an inverse fold in origami, kind of at the end. And then where you put from the center of your paper, you put your index finger in and pull that out a little bit and make a crease under your buildings and between the buildings and the street. All right, boys and girls, have fun. I will see you next class.